My name is Patrick Smith. I'm the Associate Program Director at Beginnings Treatment Center. What we're going to be talking today about is about the difference between millennial values and their parents generally. We have a young population here, so being focused on and understanding values between families, parents, and children is a real important part of the treatment process. Well, I think the first thing that you have to remember is that substance abusers generally are dealing with emotional stunted growth. They generally struggle to act maturely. They're focused, it's sort of a prolonged adolescence, you might say, except for in some areas where they can really apply some of the survival skills that they learn to maintain addiction. But generally, when it comes to values, like a parent would value retirement, finances, security, health is a big issue. Young people generally do not focus on health. They're more focused on immediate gratification and getting what they want when they want. It's very immature, almost adolescent type stuff. Well, like I said, that adolescent phase, appearance is always important, and you throw in social media and Facebook, stuff like that, where appearance is really important to them. Like I said, immediate gratification, getting what they want when they want, as opposed to working towards a goal. They generally have somewhat of an immature mindset of having real high expectations but putting out minimal effort. This is something that parents don't really understand. But young adults, and I think the biggest thing is if a parent can look at their child and see that they're somewhat stuck, with their emotional maturity, and kind of meet them where they're at, this is probably going to help a lot. But generally, relationships are very important to young adults. They will sometimes value friendships, whether they're healthy or not, over family relationships, which sounds absurd. Parents tend to take that stuff very personal, but to a young adult, it's very important to them. Sexuality is a big value to young adults. They're very focused on that. This is where appearance comes in. And I think that one of the biggest differences between their parents and the young adults is a disconnect of parents expecting their young adults, especially being chemically dependent, to be something or somewhere that they're just not yet. And this is where physical sobriety, getting clean, transitions into some growth and maturity, healing the brain, the body, everything that's involved with substance abuse. These things are all that play a factor in their growth. Well, I mean, it's really kind of a core issue that as an addiction professional, one of the things that we have to do is we have to meet people where they're at. And this is what happens with parents is they just struggle to accept and meet their kids where they're at. They have expectations of them to be farther along than they really are. So it becomes, there's a lot of intolerance, high expectations, and with that comes a lot of frustration. It can be turn into a very critical situation where the parents are very critical, have high demands. I think I wouldn't suggest anybody lower their expectation of another person, because we always want our children to do well. We want them to grow. We want them to mature, be better than and have everything that we didn't have, and so on. But and boundaries are very important with between parents and children. And so I think just cognitively just knowing what you're up against is an emotionally immature person whose growth has been stunted, maturity level has been affected, giving a little bit of love and tolerance, I think, but still having firm boundaries, because young adults really crave and want structure. They want authentic relationships in their life, but most of the time their pride and ego will not allow them to say it. But my experience in working with young adults specifically over a number of years has been that they thrive with structure. They will go to great lengths to see who is what they say they are. They'll suffer consequences just to test and push boundaries. And parents are usually the ones that are taken advantage of the most. And so those boundaries and stuff, but just accepting them for where they're at, but still being firm, but understanding at the same time. It's a difficult balance, if that makes sense. Communication creating a safe environment to give them an opportunity to talk about their thoughts and their feelings. Because, like I said, they're somewhat emotionally, stunted in their growth. So there's always kind of an adversarial type thing, and not always. I don't be too generalized, but a lot of the times there's just an immediate assumption that parents don't understand. They won't listen. Every time I try to talk to them, they judge me. I'm disappointing them, and a lot of that stuff may not be true, but that's their perception. So I think that the biggest thing that a parent can do is to try to create a safe environment for them to talk to them about what it is that they're thinking, what they're feeling, as immature and ridiculous as it sounds, let them talk about their hopes and their dreams, even if it doesn't jive with what you want for them. That's probably the biggest thing that any parent can do. I would suggest that parents take a look at developmental stages of adolescence, because there's a lot of parallels between young adults and adolescents, especially chemically dependent young adults. A lot of parallels. So if you just go through and look at those stages, you'll see what those values, the importance that they have, some of which I touched on today. That's probably going to be one of the best things they can do.